What's up everybody, Henry here, and in this video I'm going to be doing a full 360-degree overview of a 1031 exchange, what it is, and what all investors should really be looking for when they're doing one. Stay tuned, and this is going to be an awesome video. What's up everybody, Henry Eisenstein here, and if you don't know who I am, I've been a part of over $400 million worth of real estate transactions over the past few years, and I just create content because I absolutely just love to do so. In this video, we're talking all about 1031 exchanges. This video, when it comes to 1031 exchanges, first off is going to be what it is. A 1031 exchange is a tax exchange. It's basically in the tax code. You bought this property 10 years ago for 100 grand. Now you're selling it for $1 million 10 years later. That means you have $900,000 in a tax basis. Now, obviously, you're going to have some write-offs in that. Might be a little bit more than that, actually.
Well, I'm imagining you took a bunch of write-offs in the meantime, but
you're going to have a tax basis on that $1 million sale because obviously you're going to have some expenses you're going to be able to write off. The point is that there's going to be a piece of that which is not being able to written off, and you're just going to end up having to bring that down to your basically your net taxable income. But instead of bringing it down to your next taxable income, you're doing something called a 1031 exchange, which is you're selling this asset, moving this equity from this asset to another asset of like form, okay? So it's a rental property buying another rental property, essentially, right? That's really what this is. But the cool part is that, honestly, you could actually buy any type of rental property as long as it's characterized as a rental property. So if you go from like a single family rental to like a small multi-family rental, that's okay, as long as it's still a rental property, okay? You're going to have a certain amount of time to do this entire process. And typically, you have to make sure you're having conversations with your 1031 exchange escrow officer where they're going to be able to, this is the individual who's going to basically hold your money in escrow. Once you've closed on your first asset, like you sold your property for $1 million, let's just say that you're going to clear 900 grand. That $900,000 is going to have to sit in an escrow account. You can't even touch your personal accounts even for 1 second, okay? Sits in this escrow account, and then until you find your next property, it can't go anywhere. It's just going to sit in this escrow account, and it's going to be directly wired to that new title company or escrow company, and that's it. So you're just basically moving the money from here into an escrow account into the next property. That's it, right? So it's just 1, 2, 3. Where it gets interesting though is again in the timeline. So everyone has an issue with the timelines. They're like, oh well, I want to find the property before I end up selling my current property because I know I'm going to sell my current property and I don't want to get stuck trying to find something last minute. Yes, this is like the double-edged sword when it comes to 1031 exchanges. What I recommend is you have a good team around you. Okay, if you're going to need a commercial agent like myself who understands the dynamics of a 1031 exchange because you're going to need to be able to find a great asset on the back end, but you're also going to make sure you need to value this current asset at the right point. You're also going to need to make sure you have an accountant so that you have an idea of exactly how much money is going to be transferred in the sale at an estimated price point of X. You're going to want to have a great commercial loan officer. This is a very different thing than a regular residential mortgage loan officer. It's a very different person. Fairly similar things, but they're very different types of loans, and typically they'll be in different companies, okay? So you're going to have those specific people, and I'd also make sure that you recommend that you have a great contractor, property manager. Like there's a couple of people that I recommend that you kind of have lined up possibly for your next 1031, because what a lot of people do is that they don't know where to put their money. They're like, what kind of property do I buy, right? I'm speaking to somebody he was going through a massive 1031 exchange. He's bought and owned quite a bit of property, but he's occupied all of the properties he's ever bought. So he doesn't, he has not done a lot of just pure rental properties, okay? So when he's looking to buy this next property, that will be more of a 100% rental, right? Will be something that will be managed, and he doesn't want to really take care of it too much. It's going to be a very different dynamic. The interesting thing is that if you don't have a great real estate agent who's working in your corner to find you off-market opportunities, this is going to be a very difficult task. So just make sure you're paying attention to that, okay? Now that you've elected to sell your property and you know exactly what you're going to sell this property for and you know exactly what you're going to walk away with the property, now it's about where you're going to put your property. If you are, getting a lot of value out of this video and you've been watching my content for a long time and you're possibly even an agent and you want to even learn how to take full advantage of 1031 exchanges, this is a great opportunity for you to schedule a coaching call on my link in the description down below. If you are going through 1031 exchange or you're an agent and you're trying to help someone go through a 1031 exchange, these are some key things that I would keep in mind. First and foremost, make sure you do a very important deep dive prior to even starting to look. The point that is very important to pay attention to is the risk tolerance of your client or yourself if you're going through the 1031. I have a fairly high risk tolerance. So I want to buy properties that are very, very distressed. I want to fix them up. Risk, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a worse investment. It just means that there's day one, you might be at a negative cash flow. Like right now I'm looking at a property that I'm essentially buying at nearly a 4.5% return cap rate. What I'm trying to explain here is that there's deals that I'm going to lose money on that deal day one, year one, right? I'm going to lose money that first year, but the property's going to be worth twice as much in 3 years. Twice as much. Once I fix it up, and I'm renting all the properties for more, like all the units for more money. It's going to have a little bit more risk, but in the long run, it's going to be worth way more money, and it's probably the better investment to make. For myself, I need to find opportunities that will have massive value add, long-term effects to it. If you're, again, call it 50, 60, or 70, or 80 years old, right, where you want something that's a little bit less of a, crazy risk, you're probably going to be looking at a triple net lease. A triple net lease is something that where the tenant is paying not only the rent, but they're paying CAM, which is your common area maintenance, your taxes, your insurance, all the utilities. They're basically maintaining the property for you. It's like a built-in property manager, essentially, because they're managing everything for you. And you can kind of just sit back and collect the money. These types of deals are very, very common when it comes to single pad properties, which is like, again, one property, one lot, and has one property on it, as in like one building, like a Walgreens or a Rite Aid. Like that's a very, very common thing. Triple net leases are very common anyways, right? So you can just do a triple net lease on a more local company, but just know that, like, obviously, if you're going to say like which one's most likely going to be around in 20 years, is probably CVS over some, Bob's Hardware, right? Like, it's just like, who knows, right? Again, this is your risk tolerance. You're going to have to pay attention to this type of piece, right? This is why I talk about risk, because listen, just because you're going to sign a triple net lease doesn't mean there's zero risk to it. Once you've figured out your risk tolerance, the second part that you want to pay attention to when it comes to talking to your client or you're thinking about things with yourself is there's two ways of looking at things. Number one, when it comes to a 1031 exchange, you can look for a property where you are paying zero more, you have no mortgage. You're going to take, like, let's just say you're going to clear $1 million and you buy a deal for $1 million. Okay. So you're taking no mortgage. This is the scenario where you have somebody, they're looking to retire and they just don't want to have any debt. And my grandfather's the same exact way. He doesn't have any debt, doesn't want to have any debt on any of the properties. I'm like, okay, sure. You do whatever you want. There are those other individuals who are like super interested in just taking a amount of money that they're going to clear, and they want to buy the most amount of real estate that money will allow them to buy. To give you an example, if you have $1 million and you're going to go find a commercial property like a multifamily and you're going to only put down 25%, $1 million will buy $4 million worth of real estate, which is really, really cool. No other asset class in the world, like, stocks or gold, are you able to basically take out a loan to buy 4x what you want to buy. You can't be like, hey, I want to buy $4 million worth of Apple stock and I have $1 million. They're not going to do that. No one's going to do that. Or, hey, I'd like to buy $4 million worth of gold. I only have $1 million though. They're not going to do that. But in real estate, hey, there's a $4 million piece of property. I have $1 million. You can buy that. It's a pretty cool thing. You're stretching your money as far as it can go. All right, so point number next. Think long-term. When it comes to a 1031 exchange, this is not something that you're most likely going to hold on to for 2 years. Most likely, when it comes to real estate, you're going to hold on to this asset for 5, 10, or 20 years. The other side of the coin is that, yes, you want to think long-term, which is very important because you're going to want to pay attention to areas that have decent levels of appreciation instead of areas that have very little appreciation. Very important thing to focus on. There are people, well, they'll follow all the right rules. They'll find the risk tolerance that they want to do, and they're going to find a way that they can stretch their money to the extent that it makes sense to. But here's the problem. They buy in an area that only has 3% appreciation year over year versus an area that might have 5 or 10% appreciation or 20% appreciation. Because there's some areas in Florida that only have 3% appreciation, and then there's places in Florida that have 20 or 25% appreciation a year. If you just bought a property, same type of value, one area versus another, in 5 years they can be worth drastically different values. This is what I'm talking about. You need to be paying attention and think very long term. But in the same coin, I want you to pay attention to this. Every single piece of real estate, you can never truly just say, I'm going to hold this forever. There's going to come a point where you're going to want to do one of two things. If a value of a property is basically capped out, which means that like in a place, an area, like the appreciation is really not going to be much more than what it is right now. And yeah, you could let it ride for 3% a year for the next X amount of years, or you could sell it and then move it into an area which is 20% appreciation or higher, right? Or, at least double digits. Every state has double digit appreciation areas, and every town or every state has areas that are only appreciating by 1, 2, or 3%. So again, if you're buying in a property in a 1 or 2 or 3% area, you could sell that and then move it into a higher appreciation area in 3 to 5 years. So just know that like everything is, yes, you want to think long term, but you don't want to say, I'm never going to sell it. It just doesn't make any sense. Other than that, guys, I hope this video supports you. And again, if you're still watching this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It would really mean the world to me. And if you're a real estate agent looking to support more people, make sure you go into the description down below and schedule a call for one of our coaching companies. We would love to be able to support you. Other than that, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.